Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. My name is Kate, and I'll be your host tonight. We're talking 1975 this season. Let me introduce you to our guests today. We, of course, have our favorites, Ryan, Mike, and Greg.
Yeah, the favorites.
Right.
Favorites.
We
Woo!
get one introduction to share.
That's how much you guys are favorites. You're all the same.
That's fair. We sound the same. Our views are the same. We look the same.
Exactly. And of course, today we were joined by the wonderful Van. How are you doing, Van?
I'm doing well. Hello. It's good to be back.
Yes, so happy to have you back. So this movie, Nashville, can you believe it? Long, great. Those are my major two feelings. Mike, what are your major opinions on this piece?
The only time Ryan compliments me, and I don't know if it is supposed to be, but I always take it as one, is he says, Altman, that's a Mike guy. And I like meandering. I like going in and out of things. I don't know how to tell stories, but in like the best way possible. So yeah, I fucking loved this movie.
Do you think he just means your abusive personality?
Oh, it might be that I tell everybody to get ready, but they might not be to set for 5 hours.
Also, I didn't say alt-man, I said alt-right. I said, you seem like you're alt-right.
You're like, you're an alt-man.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah. What about you, Greg? How you feeling?
Usually we have at least some history with a movie. I was dimly aware that there was a movie called Nashville, and I had no idea really what it was about or what was going on before I started watching it. And that's a cleaner slate than we have with a lot of movies on this show. And it's a very complicated movie, so hopefully I won't be too far behind everybody else. Although I'm guessing, Ryan, have you even seen this movie?
Yes.
Ahead of time? What a sucker.
Many times, Greg. Come on now.
Shut up, man. You suck.
You've seen it many times, but have you liked it?
No. Not the first time. I was very.
Oh well, I liked it. Kate, I liked it the first time I saw it.
Okay, Greg. Okay, this is not a scored show, Greg. So calm your ass down.
Okay, according to maybe not officially, but Greg noted. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
Kate, could you
Ryan,
please stop winking at Greg?
I love to wink over radio. Ryan, so how are you feeling about it now?
No, this is one of the best movies of all time. Anybody who says otherwise is a child. But I will say, Kate, that 1975 has fucking started. Like we're dropping our Jaws show tomorrow, and we're prepping our Holy Grail show. And those are like 75 all timers, but this is fucking it, right? Like the season has started.
Mm-hmm. Fully. Yeah, this definitely encapsulates a moment. Very, very, in every way. And it feels like the text itself is very self-aware of that. Van, is this your first time watching this film?
It was my first time, and I'm going to have to agree with sort of how Ryan's first time went. I did not enjoy this film whatsoever. I do not like films that are over 90 minutes, and I do not like country music.
Agreed.
So this is sort of the two worst possible scenarios in one movie, but I sat through it, and I did, in fact, complete the movie.
Can we all agree she's right about the 90-minute thing? Like, that is clearly...
Yes, I am objectively right about that. I know that
That's
for
a fact about film.
There could be a
this-
bad edition that like cuts all the country music out, and then it would be 90 minutes long.
Oh, you know what? Honestly, I would watch that. Honestly, like, my biggest issue was just all the different cutaways, and the songs lasted for so long, and it was just like, I get the point. Let's move on. Let's find the next point of action. Let's find
And
the
then
next
another
point of
one would
interest.
start right after that. Like, one song would go on forever, and then another one
Just
would
like
start.
a concert where you're like, oh yeah, I actually didn't miss this.
Apparently it was a specific, like, I think there is a legitimate hour of musical numbers throughout that entire film.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Cut those. We're already down to an hour and 40 minutes. Still too long. It's a
bearable.
very, very long movie.
But bearable, for sure.
But bearable. Yeah. I was surprised. I'd seen this movie once before when I was, in a film class. I know I fell asleep in the middle of it. Just from the fact that I did it again. But then went back and rewatched it, this morning, and I get it now in a way that I didn't before.
It's one you want to be awake for.
It's one you want to be awake for, but I do understand that it's difficult to do such, Van. I'm not so far removed from your camp. So let's take a quick break, and when we're back, we'll launch in.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com. And it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review, bye!
Today, we're talking Robert Altman's 1975 classic satirical musical ensemble comedy drama film Nashville. Seen by many as the director's magnum opus, Nashville's scope is overwhelming, with 24 main characters, an hour's worth of musical numbers, and multiple intersecting storylines. The cast, which includes everyone from David Arkin to Keith Carradine, Geraldine Chaplin, Shelley Duvall, Jeff Goldblum shows up, Lily Tomlin at a certain point. These people all combine to explore the story of America as it approaches its bicentennial, through the wonderful world of country music. Taste buds, I ask you this. How does Altman's signature style of overlapping dialogue and non-traditional plotting inform this specific movie? Mike, how do you feel about this question? Hopefully good.
I think it's a good question.
It's well written.
Well written, well thought out. I think with this, it shows the chaos of any sort of scene. I think it's so hard when movies are about a specific scene. It's like, well, I guess that scene was mostly about these three people, because you just like dig into this band. And I do feel like he tried to capture every tier you can be involved in the Nashville music scene. And in here, when it was like one of the most popular, at least in the world of the movie, I don't know in the real world, but the most popular thing. So it's so intertwined with politics. So everybody, this is the hub of everything popular culture. And if you're a waitress, or if you're Double H, the Elvis wannabe guy.
Haven. Yeah. Haven Hamilton, I think, is exactly right, Greg.
Greg,
squared. Second imaginary point.
Yeah.
That it's, everybody's going to bounce off of each other like a pinball. Like that, there's no way to escape, and even if you're at the top, you're going to have to hobnob with the people at the bottom. Like it's a very like, what's the word? Where water goes back and forth. It's Altman-esque in a way, and I don't know what that word means, but I think I'm starting
or
to
as
based on this
as
movie.
Ryan would say, Mike-esque.
Or Mike-esque, yeah.
Thank you.
Mike-ish,
I
more
think
so.
On this podcast, when we all talk at the same time, is that just us being Altman-esque?
Yes, we're doing
Yes.
it.
Exactly.
Not just rude to our guests, but it's an illusion.
Well, to many, Altman's simply being rude to his viewers. How very rude of you to speak over yourself.
Oh,
like
I
this.
would
How am I
agree
supposed to know?
entirely. I felt just
Really, Ben?
excluded from this scene. I had no idea who to focus on, what to focus on, like where I should be looking. Bits and pieces of conversation were coming and going, but like I enjoy a little
Doesn't
bit
that feel
of
like
structure.
the point, though?
I get it. It feels like kind of like a slice of life film where you just get a snapshot of how everything would actually be. But it is a movie. You need to think of the audience, and that's just sort of where I'm coming from on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that there's this battle going on, and this battle's been going on like every era in the history of movies, but like are the point of movies to like be fantastic and show us new worlds, or are they supposed to be like real and gritty? And so we always have these people coming out with, realism and essentially trying to like make it as close to documentary as possible. And what I love about Altman is that he's not picking a side. He is making these conversations work like they would in real life, like they might in a lot of documentary scenes that aren't just talking heads, but no one would confuse this for a documentary. So what he's doing is that he's picking and choosing from all of the schools how he's going to make his movie. And that is honestly how you get a term, like that's how you get a term esque. You know, like
Right.
when you do that, you create your own thing, and that's how you get an esque at the end of your name, which I think is the biggest compliment you can get.
That, or you go to law school.
Yeah, you can be an esque.
That was a good one.
It took a second.
No, great point though, Ryan. I mean, Greg, did this resonate with you? The way that that Altman was playing with perspective and playing with focus?
It did, specifically as it's situated in 1975, because as we've seen in so many of the 1975 movies, there's almost like a peanut gallery effect of, mobs of people standing around observing something and commenting on it constantly. And so this movie kind of takes that mob and turns it into an actual cast of characters. And its sort of lack of true perspective and its confusing overlappedness, I think, really does mirror so many of the other messages in the movies of 1975, like Jaws' loss of authority and inability to, trust the people who are meant to protect us, or Dog Days Afternoons, having outsiders so outside the fold that they have no recourse but to some sort of violent manifestation, and that's the only time that society pays attention to them. So I think it does a really good job of mirroring mirroring all that on top of it being his trademark or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something, there's something like so domineering about the perspective of most films. Like you watch scenes that are like tightly cut, and your perspective is forced onto certain faces and certain characters, and you are not left to choose any path through the movie as it's presented. This movie allows you to sort of choose your own person
adventure.
To focus on. Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure movie, and I appreciate that.
Without being bad like that Black Mirror one.
Yes.
It reminds me of a play in that way, because and not all plays, some plays are, very tight and everybody talks at their own pace, but there's no camera saying, look here now, so you're always just paying attention to whatever you feel like, and this kind of does that. And there's so many ways to take in the movie. You can either try to watch all of it at once, which will drive you slightly mad, and it's just this quilted pastiche and vibe of Nashville. Or you can watch it over and over and over again, and every time be like, this watch, Opal's my main character. Next time, Lily Tomlin's my main character. And you kind of just try to focus out anything that's not them. And it does create a different viewing way each time then.
Yeah.
What helped me, too, on this last watch is I had all 24 of my Nashville action figures in front of me, and I would move them along with the action of the movie.
It sounds like something you would do. You have all those weird little figurines in your house.
Again, these are private things, Kate, that we just keep.
They're totally normal figurines, Kate, that any 40-year-old man should have 20 or more of.
The other big Altman thing is that despite being, as Greg mentioned before, a renowned dickbag, I think that he is at the top of the game as far as human empathy goes. And if he's not empathetic, then his camera is, or there's something about him that is just so invested in these people that you don't feel him getting off on torturing his characters or making fun of them. He's right there. And that's why he's the only person who could do 24 characters, because when we meet them, they're so important to us, and that's impossible to do. F9 can't do it. Oh, shit.
You'll see.
Fast 10, Nashville 2. Let's bring them together.
Nashville 2, Scam's Adventure. My favorite thing about what we've all been talking about, because I think it really resonates with me, Ryan, what you said, because the film theory, it feels like the absolute foundational split is the difference between spectacle and realism being the first conversation that's had, whether it's Millier's Trip to the Moon or Lumiere, watch people come out of a factory. These very two distinct ways of approaching making movies. Is it
top two movies of all time?
Top two movies of all time. My favorite two movies.
When the people start coming out of the factory, though, I got to clear out because it feels like they're going to come right out of the screen and start trying to walk over me.
I get very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
But that the thing that I think makes this movie so distinct, or honestly, I think Dan's isn't magical, is the fact that he makes realism almost surreal. It feels, it becomes its own otherworldly perspective by removing the classic perspective. It feels so, because it does feel like it's giving you the right to focus on that which you'd like to focus on. But simultaneously, it's so distorted. It's almost like being in a fun mirror, like a hall of mirrors. Because I'm so not used to watching movies like that. And so it's this weird balance of like, this feels more real in the way that it's not forcing my attention into one perspective, but simultaneously I feel like I'm in the middle. It's almost carnival-esque, having all of this going. I'm no longer, my brain's not trained to look at 24 stories and be able to like absorb them all and not freak out. So I completely understand, Van, where you're coming from with all of this. Do you think that it really is the lack of perspective, or was there a storyline maybe that really caught your eye?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the storyline of the poor guy and his wife in the hospital, that was just, and I know it ended like halfway through the movie or something like that, but that was a particular storyline. That guy I paid attention to every time he came on screen. But no, now I see that I was sort of looking at like the screen as it being unfocused, and unfocused meaning like a bad direction, or a director without like a strong sense of direction on the actual film. But that's obviously untrue, because it's very, very stylized, the way that he's doing like this open plan, no focus on all of the characters at once. And I feel like if I were to watch it again, I would understand it more.
It's totally one of those movies. Like the first time I watched it, I just started it over again because I was like, I liked that, but I felt like I missed a bunch of it. And on the second viewing, when you know who everyone is and you know what they're up to, it really does, I think, start to make a little bit more sense. And the movie itself engages with this attention idea. If you think about that scene where at the party the BBC reporter is talking to Hamilton's son, Bud Hamilton, and he's singing her this song about how much he really loves her, but she notices Elliot Gould, who is looking like amazing, by the way, like absolutely just like looks like such a snack, and she like he's singing her this sweet song, and she's like, "Is that Elliot Gould?" and gets up and just fucking tears ass away. So that sort of like strained attention, I think, is engaged with like primarily by the text.
The other thing too with a rewatch is you will see like the amount of control that he exhibits on this film, and I'm not saying like on the set or whatever, but like the control of his vision and what he was able to do, the masterful foreshadowing and telegraphing that everything, every single thing is feeding into, you know, what the future of the movie is, and it's jaw-dropping.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot more to talk about. We've only talked about this movie for 10 minutes, and there's another 2.5 hours to go.
Let's get to a country song.
So let's get to a country song. Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue.
Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp, he's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out.
A very fancy film critic on Wikipedia suggests that Nashville is preoccupied with a, quote, populist culture driving itself mad with celebrity, and presents Nashville as a provincial New York or Hollywood, as one of the places where the culture manufactures its image of itself. Taste buds, what does Nashville have to say about chasing celebrity? Ryan, you, as a celebrity, how do you feel?
Okay. I remember when I was trying to get to where I'm at right now, and I think Nashville almost makes it seem like it is instinctual. You don't have a ton of choice. And this just happens to be the country music scene, but I don't think it's necessarily celebrity. I think it's more like there is this proverbial ladder that you need to climb in any field, no matter what. You know, Altman chose country music, but it could be anything. And part of the reasons why Altman is so great is because we see with like in equal amounts all of the different rungs of the ladder. Like we get the lowest of the low, the highest of the high, and actually all of the levels in between, which usually are not talked about. Usually movies are about the low level or the high level, and we get to see how everyone's at their current place, and they will probably do whatever it takes to get to the one above that.
And I think also it shows the way in which, and a few 1975 movies hit at this, but like the way that the veneration of celebrities is one side of a coin, the other which is like destructive anger and hatred, and that they're like put up on a pedestal so that they can be ritualistically torn down and hated. And so that's why the end with her being shot is like, that seems to be the natural end of all the attention that comes with celebrity, some sort of destructive impulse at the end of all of that.
And even before we get to that final destruction, Barbara Jean, they all know her, they love her. It's been hard to get other people to get to the hospital to see their loved ones who are there because she's getting so much adulation. Flowers are always there. Mm-hmm. But then they boo her.
They don't want to listen to a thing.
She sort of tells a story.
And within seconds.
Do the stories suck? For sure. But yeah, it's not that long. It's one of the shorter scenes in the movie, and they freak out. And then we get the bottom rung version of it is the server who all she wants to do is sing. And the guys start booing her. At first, they're like, oh, she can't sing. That's delightful. And then they start booing her when she's like, well, I'm going to keep singing and not take my clothes off. So you get the bottom rung version of fuck you, dance monkey, and the top rung version of it.
Which is, like, even though there's a murder in this movie, the single most heartbreaking scene. And it's heartbreaking at one level because you, like, just feel so bad for this woman. And then it's double heartbreaking, or exponentially, when you realize it has not phased her at all. Like, she still believes that she can sing and that she's going to be a star. And this terrible night did nothing.
Well, thinking about celebrity, it's very interesting to look at her story and then the blonde story, whose name I don't know if we get. We just see her kind of desperately on the margins of everybody else's. She looks...
The one who sings at the very end.
And then she sings at the very end. So that's why it's so interesting. It's like, what is this saying about celebrity? Because one girl is grinding and cannot make it, and one girl is grinding and looks like worse off. The server looks like she's doing it the right way. And the other one is just trying to hop over fences and be like, but let me sing. And then she's in the right place. She is a little Looney Tunes, so she's like, I'll sing even though somebody just got murdered. And then she ends up being very good at it, surprisingly, and like winning at like calming the everybody down.
And then, of course, going back to what Kate said in the beginning about the coastal elites and how they react to Nashville, or how Nashville reacts to them, the, like, I don't know, the thinnest of characters in more than one way. The one that's like really talentless and just so narrow-minded and just walks around like a zombie, ignores her family. Call me L.A. Joan. She is the entire West Coast representative in the entire movie, and that's just how they see L.A. It's just a bunch of thin
groupies.
Yeah, groupie horn dogs, just walking around smiling like idiots.
And that's only half true.
only on the good days.
Smiling like idiots, sure. Walking around, never.
Yeah, it's a driving town.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because you like the people not from Nashville, the ones who are obviously not. It's L.A. Joan. It's the politicians like Bagman. We never see the politician, so it's his Bagman who's trying to run everything. Who also has and Opal, the British reporter. And I'd say those are three characters that the movie does not have a lot of empathy for. That are kind of cartoonish and aren't like you don't get to see their human sides. They're just like, aren't these folks trash?
Well, the Bagman has a joke for everything, and it's such an incredible way of taking this weird place that I do not relate to on the surface and making me feel for these characters because I don't want to look like that douchebag.
Right.
And then Opal doesn't work for the BBC, right? That's just something she made up, right?
She's like, well, I know I'm British, so that'll confuse people.
Well, it is a very powerful statement, the tinniness of all of the characters who are not like from Nashville or who don't believe in Nashville. You know, even if the belief is inherently flawed or a lie, right? Look, even if what they believe in is a lie, the characters like, you know, the Bagman, Opal, and L.A. Joan, like these are people who are context for the earnestness, even though we can see how superficial, how fake, how broken the system is within it. There is this innate humanity seeing all these human beings trying in a system that we know is like failing and is being critiqued upon by others in many real ways. And I think that what you were saying again, Ryan, earlier about, like you see the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, it made me think about how so much of the American dream is tied with celebrity in the 21st century. Like it is. That's our understanding of what like self-actualizing and money and self-determination kind of result in, you know, and 21st century.
The other part is can't stop, won't stop. Like, it doesn't matter what level you are on. You have to keep moving and make more money and get higher on the ladder.
Exactly. And so, you know, when I think about like, about the cacophony of the, you know, intersecting, overlapping, 24 main characters, giant pastiche, like, you know, context of this movie, it's, you know, honestly, it's very similar to the internet. It's very 21st century in how relatable. I find it very relatable in that way, where it's like social media in the same way has the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. Everyone's doing their own thing, and participating in kind of this broken system. And you have celebrities that become eaten alive, that become Twitter main characters, that become Kim Kardashian, that are hated or have, you know, like, there is something, I saw that connection very powerfully throughout all of this, especially because they're talking so much about surviving 200 years at the beginning of this movie. And now I'm thinking about our country as it stands today, 50 years later. Well, you know, it thinking about all, I mean, does any of this resonate at all to you, Mike? What I just said.
It also, sorry, Mike, it also featured the first form of social media, which is throw a microphone on top of a car. That's how you get your message.
That's the first form of social media.
And just say fucking platitudes that mean nothing. They're just hollow. I know, like, talk about like how prophetic this movie might have been with. So there's the social media. You got your main characters who get built up just to get torn down, and just the guy who is a faceless voice who will just a lot of his political sayings aren't even connected to what came before. Like, it is just like a wall of like, but I'm for you, people.
Yeah, trying to figure out his platform is really weird. He seems to be running on replacing the national anthem with a song that more people are familiar with.
Yeah.
Like Stairway.
Making it illegal to be a lawyer in the government.
That one, yeah.
Yes.
Well, he's not wrong there.
Well, okay, nobody likes lawyers, right? But they like know how laws work. Like, you got to have them as part of the law-making apparatus.
But there is, well, trust me, we'll get to politics.
Trust you, me.
Yes. Van, as our resident Gen Zer, do you think in the conversations around like celebrity and around, specifically like image as, I feel like that's a conversation that's put on people who grew up with the internet a lot more. They're asked to think about it and interact with it a lot. Like to you, do you see kind of relationship between the way that this movie is painting the intersections of different types of people and different lifestyles as similar to the way that like the internet functions now?
Oh, absolutely.
Or do you is this just like an analog?
No, I mean, with the first scenes are really just everybody's like congregating together. You're all in the same area. So that's where you've got like people from totally different backgrounds coming together, like on the internet, that sort of comparison there. But I resonated with what you said about seeing the parallels between social media and like this Nashville, the film, like this insular, like drama obsessed, image obsessed world that you'll do anything and it's a bubble. Exactly, it's a bubble. It was a bubble of musicians and stars and celebrities in Nashville, and it's a bubble of whatever community you end up in on the internet. So absolutely, there's parallels there.
And like somebody like Haven Hamilton, I don't think is a national star. He feels sort of like the mayor of Nashville.
Local.
He still feels like the highest local. Exactly, yeah. And so he he doesn't want to leave Nashville because then he would be competing with people who are probably much more talented, probably put less passion in their bullshit America songs. But I do think that he would be just overwhelmed with talent and looks if he leaves Nashville. So he doesn't, and he just sort of runs the town. And that's how the internet works, right? Like, find your people.
Oh, yeah.
Never leave your people.
Yeah, because you'll get validation from your people. As soon as you leave, as soon as he goes to LA where the people are wacky, as soon as he joins LA Joan out wherever she lives, like, yeah, he would fall. He wouldn't be, everyone's favorite guy anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Let's take a quick break. Oh,
so
would you like
sorry,
to
Kate, can we stretch out a little bit? Because I did want to talk about Altman and
of course.
women.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I like as thin, again, not the pun, but like as thin as like a lot of these characters are, I want to talk about these women as opposed to some of the other women we've seen in 75 films. And a lot of it is their relation to the man that they're with. But I think one of the major things that Altman is doing is showing that like country music is content. We just got to create content, right? That's the same as it is today. Mm-hmm. But also there's no difference between country music and women to these men. That like all of them are sort of created and handled in this way where like you are the product. And that's one of the messages of the movie is that goes for Sue Ann Lynn or the lady who had to strip and for Barbara Jean all the way at the top, and you watch the way that the men treat all of these women and that's it. No matter what, it's just that content. You are my content.
What does Barnett say? Don't tell me how to run your life. Like he's arguing there is don't tell me how to run your life, and it's like, and I think the movie is like without underlining it, it seemed to me like definitely highlighting the sort of woman question that we've seen in 1975, which is
woman
this suddenly like paranoia, like oh no, what if they're people? Oh God, what have we done? That would make everything we've done so awful, wouldn't it? And so like the it's still not expertly done in most of these movies, although this is, I think, one of the better ones. But, just showing all the different ways in which these women have their lives destroyed and controlled by not even very cool men. Like, really unimpressive.
They're kind of ugly. The cast is kind of ugly.
Barbara Jean's husband is a slob. I think it was Pauline Kael, it's either her or Ebert, who said something like, there's like this dramatic irony going on with the movie because the audience who would watch Nashville is just like taken over by feminism at this point. But the characters in the movie have never heard of it. And to watch those two things go on as the audience watching from that lens, that makes it so much more interesting. Like there is a culture, there is a time where these guys are like, yeah, that's how husbands work, but not the audience for this movie at that time. They were all doing something different.
I think, this really ties back because I felt very strongly about this relationship or this parallel to the way that social media functions. And you know what that is? I think that's Altman being incredibly good at understanding human dynamics and understanding the way that large masses of people intersect with one another and have their individual stories that are influencing each other but are fundamentally a part of this very large, very stressful tapestry. And I think that that's what makes it such a clean, easy parallel. And so when I think about the way that women are portrayed in this movie, I think the comments that are being made, the criticism that is being, kind of had, I suppose, around these female characters is very applicable to the way that women are interacted with on social media on a very, very basic level. It does not surprise me that like the major star, that Barbara Jean is a woman, is an image, is something that is meant to be built up to be torn down, like Greg had said before. To me, there is something inherently sexist about any insular culture trying to commodify identity. It's like inherently there, which is what makes the internet so like literally built on the backs of trolls. I see exactly what you mean, where it's like there is a subtlety to figuring out how female representation in this movie is being like rejected and manipulated and resented in a way that I think is very similar to the other conversations we've been having around, around the storylines and the way that they played out in this movie.
This movie
having the biggest.
Yeah. Oh.
Go, Van.
Yeah, sorry, this movie really sort of blew me away in terms of what they showed of like of a normal family dynamic. I guess you would call that normal. I don't see that portrayed a lot, and I definitely haven't seen as many older films that would depict like the actual way of life there. But yeah, the husband and wife dynamic really just bad vibes. From
Ned Beatty rolling his eyes at his deaf children telling a story.
Yes.
That's some
Oh my
1975
God,
husband
yeah.
right there.
But that whole thread in Lily Tomlin's character, Lene Reese, is so interesting because she seems to have more agency because her husband isn't her manager. She's pushing back against it. She's the one who's into infidelity and getting in. She's like, but she's also like, she's
I'm
also
into
But
infidelity.
how we meet her, and maybe 75 is different than 2021. How we meet her, it's like, okay, so she's not doing the sex angle that the other women are doing or are forced to do, but she is certainly appropriating gospel music, being the one white woman who's at the front of a black choir. And so
With her
really
reedy little
complex how I
voice.
feel about this character. I went back and forth on her
Yeah.
more than any of the other ones.
And the last we see of her, she's being dragged off stage by her husband, who keeps saying, "I just need you right now. I just need you right now." So, like, while like she's going to be part of the singing for everybody and with everybody, he is just like dragging her away and being like, "But I need you. But I need you."
Right.
And it feels
so
very
that's like a
specifically
kind of-
not to protect her. Like,
No,
it's
yeah,
to
no,
protect
I
him.
need you. Yeah, it's not like let me protect you. It's I need you. I need you. It's like he's dragging her away. Bummer.
These are great points. We did a great job talking about this. Are we
Nailed
ready
it.
to go to a quick break?
Is it okay with you, Ryan, if we take
Yeah,
a break?
Yeah.
I'm
Ryan,
sorry.
okay
I
with
like
you, Joe?
talking about women. I guess
Yeah,
that's not.
I know you're like my favorite things, Altman and ladies. Yes, of course. When we come back, we're going to dive into politics.
Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad. And perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic. And perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies.
Populism, the replacement party, a faceless straw man lamenting America's loss of identity. This one really hits different in 2021. Taste buds, how do you think the politics of Nashville and the era of 1975 affect this piece? And how do you think it affects the way you view it today? Let's start with you, Ryan. You're the oldest guy here, right?
Yep, by a lot, too.
Thanks, Kate. There's one part where the guy says, like, "Oh, you want a rock and roller? Because I'm a mean rock and roller. You want a rock and roller on your stage?" And the dude is like Peter from Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a hardcore rocker, bro. But he's like,
a
"Oh, I'm
punk.
not into politics," and that seems so crazy to me. Like to have somebody who just has no opinion to watch this movie in 2021 and see that person, like that is insane. This.
Oh, well, that is a conservative.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I think that part of what Altman was doing is showing that, like, I think that, you know, like Greg was saying that all 75 movies are sort of about, like, the failure of authority, or us realizing that authority is not just not flawless, but very flawed.
Like the worst of us?
Yeah, and us coming to terms with that. And I think part of what Nashville's doing is, while we're presenting life, we're showing all of these characters, every type of character, you know, like with every type of face, showing this like middle, like should there be a middle thing? Should all of the other stuff go away? And the good and bad that comes with that, you know, like Democrats are terrible, Republicans are terrible. Here's what the middle could be. And it's terrible. It's all terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Good points. Mike. No, Greg, you're the second oldest.
Oh, I think that, you know, what the movie shows over time is that ultimately this is an empty populism. And it's because the people themselves have, like, sort of rejected politics. And I think
Are you saying, Greg, that Christmas doesn't smell like oranges?
Christmas doesn't smell like, well, like those questions are perfect, right? Because you've heard this guy's banter all throughout the movie, and it's like starting you're starting to realize it's not forming a coherent picture of who this guy is. And then these questions are like Dada-esque, you know, like, have you ever reflected upon an acorn rolling down a hill? What the fuck? That started a political movement, but it's because it is intentionally devoid of meaning, because 75 is a time that I think was similar to what a lot of us were looking for in 2021, which is like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just get this odious politics out of the way, get Vietnam out of the way, get Watergate out of the way, get past it, and then not think about politics so much. And so that's why you have a rock and roller who's like, I don't care about politics. I don't want to think about it at all, because people are tired of engaging, and then the actual politicians are not really saying anything. What they're saying is devoid of substance, and instead is meant to like sort of just coddle us and almost like be soporific, like almost just make us fall asleep while we listen to their political nonsense.
That's also why you have the youth movement going right for this guy in the movie. Like he already has the kids, because that Acorn shit, I'll listen to you. Like that was crazy.
That shit slaps. Mike,
it's a lot of like, I've never heard somebody be so real, man. But then it's just fluffy nonsense bullshit. I think it's very interesting that we never see him, which is obviously like, so you even if you see a politician, you don't know who they actually are, right? I'm assuming that's what that means, that we never see this guy and he just says his nonsense all the time. His bagman has no respect for the musicians he's trying to use. They are just
basically
a
devil figure.
Yeah, they're just a tool for him to use, and at the same time, they say that so Tom from Peter, Paul, and Mary says he doesn't care about politics.
Exactly.
Most of them say they don't. Like Barbara Jean's husband freaks out because the poster, the politician's name is behind her, and he's like, "We said none of that. We don't want to endorse it." But you're at a
because Republicans buy shoes too.
Right, exactly. That's why. It's because they don't want to piss anybody off. It's not because he's against this guy's policies, especially because you're at an all-day event for this guy anyway. So you are endorsing silently because you're the headliner of entertainment. But you're like, but the poster will let people know she actually
But the
believes him.
image has to be something different. Yeah, image has to be completely apolitical. And if you have politics, you have to be imageless. That's kind of...
and then when she gets shot, the politician, like, he peels out. He's parked on grass, but he like peels out. Like I am out of here.
It becomes like a Benny Hill skit. Like how fast they leave the whole park. But speaking to what both Greg and Mike said, the way that the bagman says, like, you're not going to have to deliver a message, like that's not going to be part of it. It never clicked with me before, but that's him also describing his politician.
Yeah, right.
Like, we don't have a message, so there's nothing that you would be supporting.
And then, there's a character that we see all the time but don't hear from, which is Jeff Goldblum, right? So he's like sort of the opposite of that. And
are they the same?
Well, it seems you never see him in the same place twice. But he seems to be completely just an image, right? His very arresting face. But like, there's a couple times where Jeff Goldblum clearly says something and they drop the audio out so that you can't. Like, he never utters a sound. And so he makes this weird like composite character with the voice who is no image at all.
In my head, he's a Mr. Mixel-Splitlick type character who's always there controlling things and is just like an imp.
God or American spirit, maybe.
Honestly, man, like based on the last 5 years of his branding, he is a Jeff Goldblum character. That is how Jeff Goldblum travels the country.
Yeah.
But how do you not have that voice? How do you not let him say stuff in a movie? His voice is like perfect.
He's got such a good voice.
It's enough for him to just be there.
Yeah. Honestly, he does stand out, and a very powerful image having him be the one person who could like drive away from the crash at the very beginning in his motorcycle. Like being able to leave that entire conversation. There is a very, very powerful.
That's
how
a great point, because the
Go
traffic jam is magnetic, like. Traffic or like crashes are in real life, where cars just keep crashing into it because they're like drawn to it. They can't stop crashing into it. And to be able to go away from the thing that is magnetizing everyone else or attracting everything else, that's a pretty powerful power to have.
I was just going to say about Jeff Goldblum, it's so meta that they refer to Easy Rider. Because he's clearly supposed to be that spirit of that movie, which didn't just change America, but it like changed specifically cinema in a very big way.
Still in 75, that's the drug all directors were chasing.
Yeah.
Is Easy Rider.
Van, as the youngest,
yes.
It's your turn to speak now.
All right. So I think what spoke to, I guess, would be me and my generation the most is sort of the truck just screaming things out, and there's no face and there's no people like running that truck. Because I feel like that's honestly what politics feels like a bit, especially until like, because I'm like freshly 21, but I wasn't able to vote, for the until 3 years ago. So it just kind of felt like for a long time I'm just sitting there watching everybody scream, and I have no ability. Like there's the words mean nothing, and I can't do anything, and there's no person I can reach to get involved in something. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's just kind of, it was really the truck that like stood out to me. And I was just like, it's just screaming at you to pick his side. And even though you never get to see the politician and you never get to hear from the politician, which has been said already, but, yeah.
And we're never like, I don't care. Like you see the truck, the proverbial truck with the proverbial screams, and you have to be like, I love that or I hate that. And it feels like we can't ever be just like, that's stupid and I have no opinion and I'm going to move on with my life.
By the nature
and that goes in with the social media thing as well. Everyone on social media, you're expected to have an opinion and you're expected to choose a side.
And the backlash, the backlash, the backlash, the backlash, the backlash.
It's just a circle. It's a cycle. It's the cycle of backlash.
I think that it's a very, very powerful opening scene. I think that this movie might have one of my favorite opening scenes of all time, if I'm thinking about it. If we have, on some level, we have this truck with these giant blaring horns, this faceless, pseudo-populism, empty jargon. Like, it's very dystopian, the way that it's, speaking about how we need to change and bring things back, especially as you move on. And like you said, Greg, it gets, the phrases become even more divorced from the reality that they're asserting and even more Dadaist, it becomes crazier. But the first zoom out or pan back from the car that is, has all these platitudes going around, it is a giant red billboard called "This is the Bank" or "The Bank." A very, very obvious, okay, so we're within a capitalist society. People are feeling unheard. We're in whatever, right? And then we go straight to this group of corny ass white people singing, "We must have done something right to be here for 200 years. And then we follow the Brit who's like, "Oh, I love this. I love this. This is so American," and how very kitschy and raw all of you are, and then going from there to the room with the black gospel choir fronted by a very weak and reedy voice. I think it's very obviously a lily white woman. And it's and so we have this immediate sense of appropriation that's right there. You have the power of the music that is visceral and incredibly obvious, being constantly interspliced, back and forth cuts with the Haven Hamilton character.
You have the culture clash.
And you have Opal being "Oh, I can see them the way that they once were," in this horrific fetishistic colonialist way. And it's this is a picture of a lot that's done within the first 5 minutes. And I think it's a really, really powerful statement about where America was in 1975 as it was trying to sell its own image to itself.
I think the generation clash, Altman sort of wears on his sleeve more than the gender clash or the politics clash. And the gender clash is in that same scene, Kate, where, Haven is in his booth and he's like, "Who's that man?" And Slash from Guns N' Roses is at the piano, clearly a long-haired hippie. And he's like,
Messer Frog.
He's get rid of Frog. I want Pig. First of all, Nashville.
Yes.
How are we nicknaming our musicians here? But and Frog is over it from the start. Frog is messing up on piano, but Frog doesn't give a shit about Haven Hamilton. And that makes Haven Hamilton even more mad. And then boom, we have the generation war throughout all of Nashville.
Exactly. There's a generation war. There's a gender war. There's a racial war. Throughout this entire movie is alchemized by the fundamental dichotomies that are at the root and at the structure of this country. And I think that Altman doesn't shy away from it. What he's able to do is put it literally in conversation with 14 other conversations being had in the same room at the same time. And I think that that's what makes it feel so internet-like to me now, watching it in 2021. It's whoa, look at all of these truths dissecting very powerful instabilities built into our nation. And how they all kind of are talking to each other and yet are all in their own universes.
And
very overwhelming.
By jumping from one to the other, you can never feel that passionate about any of them. You get distracted you're like, oh, the minute I'm going to be mad at cultural appropriation, oh no, now I'm mad at this generational warfare. And I think a huge one is, so Mrs. Green dies, and Mrs. Green is another faceless character we never see. And
Wait,
the death,
was she Jeff Goldblum?
She might have been Jeff Goldblum. And she dies, and the death doesn't fit. So even death doesn't matter if you're always paying attention to literally everything. Nothing will ever hit you in a way, and the movie does that in a really interesting juggling way. Where and then the most emotion it is Mr. Green leaving his wife's funeral because he's just pissed at, I think her real name is Martha, at L.A. Joan. He's like, I don't care, I'm gonna go find her. She needs to be here. Like, and that's the most emotion in the whole movie, is that moment right there.
Well, I think that Van picked up on it immediately. Like, he is somehow, and I don't know if it's the power of his performance in combination.
I would say so. Honestly, I thought he was phenomenal. Like, he was phenomenal at acting, getting just really emotional really fast, and it worked.
But he's also one of the few characters who isn't directly controlled by his ego. You know, and that's that's why he hits you hard.
That's probably what it is, because when you see him, he's introduced at the bar or at the restaurant where, you know, Sue Llewellyn or whatever her name is working, singing to Jeff Goldblum, and Jeff Goldblum doing his magic tricks, and but it stood out as like a distinctly like McCabe and Mrs. Miller style, which of course that's just Altman-esque, right? Like level. It's so Altman to me, the way this incredibly realistic and sad and understated conversation was being had with a very real human being, it felt like, in the middle of like all of this overlaid conversation and the sound mixing.
Almost like Altman got it by accident.
Constantly be a touchstone. Yes, yeah. It's like almost like they got it by accident. It was so naturalistic. It like stood out, and like, oh, this is someone I can cling to in the middle of this madness, and it has something to do with his humanity and something to do with his sadness and his lack of ego in the rooted at the center of that sadness. Like, that he is a person feeling something for someone else, and that might be the only character in that story.
In Nashville, in the city of Nashville, wow, that guy stands out for sure.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we're back, awards. It's time for awards. Okay, guys, let's start with... This is going to be an interesting one, actually. This Nashville's cringiest moment. Van, do you have one in mind?
Yeah, I do. The first rendition of Let Me Be the One by Suleen Gay. That was just bad. I get she's supposed to be a bad actor, a bad singer. Like, that's her whole shtick, right? They just stayed on her for so long, and her jerky, like, hand movements and everything. Yeah.
This one has hand movements, was one of her things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was my cringiest
Would you put
moment.
her one forward when she was practicing it in the mirror while stomping her bra?
Yeah.
Brutal.
That too. Anything that has to do with her.
Yeah. She was a cringe. She was a giant cringe. Her whole story was. And I think that plays into what Ryan was saying earlier, where it's like kind of the hardest part is that she isn't defeated in the end, that like she is going to keep doing all of this and keep being in these cringy like circumstances.
And just keep being degraded too. Like, that's rough.
God.
And her only buddy, her only truth teller, is like, I'm moving to Detroit. Fuck this. I can't talk to you anymore.
Ryan, what about you? What's your cringiest moment?
My cringiest moment, this is I would say spectacularly uncringy movie for the time. You know, and that just like speaks to Altman's camera charm. So I'm going to go against Altman, and I'm going to say that the way that car crash was shot on the freeway was so 75 in the wrong way. I feel like every movie in the 70s had this thing where, like, it's got to be a little Cannonball Run, right? It's got to be a little, like, let's have a big pile up. And it just became the movie, one of the most realistic, touching movies I've ever seen in my life, became a cartoon for 30 seconds. And
it's a wacky race for a little bit.
It is.
So weird.
It is.
The way they all pull out of their parking spots and drive around each other. They all have like themed vehicles.
They all make the arm motion at each other.
Yeah. Each vehicle says something about its occupants.
Yeah.
What a surreal moment.
But yeah, it's definitely that's what I'm saying, is that his realism slips into surrealism very fast. He reminds me a lot of Miranda July. That's actually in that moment. That's a separate thought entirely, but a person who's so good at picking up on the way that people interact with each other, that it becomes surreal. Like when the Opal character was talking to the Lily Tomlinson, it was like, "Oh, I cannot hear about your deaf children. That is so sad." That's like honestly the most I could not possibly during that scene. It made me laugh so hard, and it was like that's so real. It's surreal.
Yeah.
Mike, cringiest moment.
This one's hard because I think the movie wanted me to cringe, but I did so hard that I can't not. It is when Suline tries to walk off because she doesn't want to strip, gets talked back into it, and so I think it's supposed to be like she's defiantly doing it, but she looks so miserable, and the guys are like, "No, we can talk ourselves to being into this, right?" I know she looks like she's on the verge of tears, but right, guys, this is still hot, and I wanted to barf everywhere.
Yeah, everyone's cheering, and her face is just gaunt. It's like this dead stare.
Horrific.
See, Mike,
Damn, women can
what's
be hot.
really messed up is I think that's not something they're ignoring so much as something that they're like actively celebrating.
No, yeah, it's a part of it. That is, yeah. Ah, God. Dudes aren't cool always.
Men suck.
Yeah.
Greg,
not always cool, but usually pretty cool. Dudes.
Lord, grant me the confidence of a mediocre country singer.
It is very tough to know if you're cringing just because you're supposed to be, or if you're cringing of your own accord. But I'm going to go with what Opal says about looking at the choir and being like, "Oh, I can see their African roots in that." I feel like that had a way of taking racism and putting it outside of the American experience and putting it into the mouth of an English person, and I thought that there was like sort of that was kind of like an unfair move. When race is talked about, it is often kind of sidestepped in this way. In this movie, it's either like black characters screaming like, "Hey, you're not black enough," or it's Opal saying one of many different like offensive things about race. And I just like to tell this story and then to engage with those topics, but kind of do it like a little bit on the sly. I just didn't really like that. I didn't think it was appropriate.
I completely would see what you're saying, because I do think that it's interesting drawing the parallel of like colonialism, especially because she was talking about missionaries and stuff at the very beginning.
And there is something like very specifically English about a lot of what goes on in the South. Like there is kind of that old connection between the aristocracies of the South and the aristocracy of England, and Mark Twain talks about that. But was using that, I think, as a cop-out, as a way to...
Yeah, it was using a way of being like, look at
out of it.
Commenting on it, but doing it in a way where it's not an American problem.
Right.
Felt conspicuous. So I see exact... So actually, I'm going to go ahead and give Greg that cringe. I know that there's no points, but here you are. Here you sit with 3, Greg. Riddle me this. Next award, director's signature. Mike, what do you think?
It does it throughout, so I want to pinpoint on one, but I think it is, if we're not talking about anything that's Altman-esque, which is just everybody talking over each other, it's the scene switch, I think, is so well done.
That was confusing sometimes.
And where we're like, we're following Barbara Jean's husband through the hospital. We're like, okay,
we know where
grounded.
we are.
I'm following him West Wing style, and then Shelley Duvall is just in the corner. And then you're like, "Camera, where are you going?" "No, camera, the scene's over here." And then we follow her in walking the other way. And I was like, God damn it. But like that like, there's so many characters just bouncing into each other that the camera can just always feel like it's moving to move. And we're now in a whole new scene.
I like it.
Thanks,
Brian.
Greg.
I mean, there is the big obvious one. Just the overlapping dialogue is just such a thing. But I want to pick something different. Mike, good one. I tried to say that genuinely, and it didn't come out that way.
It was the worst yet.
But I'm going to keep trying, Greg. I'm going to keep trying to not sound sarcastic. Robert Altman was like, I made MASH. I made The Long Goodbye. Now I'm making this country music movie, and I don't have a place for Elliot Gould. Oh, I'm just going to put Elliot Gould as Elliot Gould in Nashville. That's some Altman-esque shit. That's some...
Elliot Gould with the curly hair?
Yeah. No notes.
I'm gonna make a movie in 1975 and not have Elliot Gould. No, that's Robert Altman.
I want Lily Tomlinson to hit me with her car in this movie, and then I want Elliot Gould to come over and kick my corpse.
Kinky.
Too much?
Greg.
Too much.
Yeah, Greg, let's kind of wash down what you just said with your opinion on director's signature.
Okay, so I'm very familiar with the works of Robert Altman, and so I know that two things he likes to do are shoot wide and then also do these really very long, involved either zoom ins or zoom out. So I'm going to go with the very last shot, which like frames the Parthenon and then pulls out more and more and more. And you see that they seriously got like 2,000 people to show up for the filming of this to just be extras. And you basically see arrayed in front of you every single character that's been in the movie. And if this movie has felt larger than life, it pales in this moment where you are seeing like this whole music event and all of the characters and all of this has framed like this crazy action that you just saw. And the camera just keeps pulling out and keeps pulling out and keeps pulling out. And it feels like we are really leaving this story sort of behind, and we're seeing its scale, which is rendered suddenly very small, like from very large to very small. And I looked at that and I just thought, that's Altman-esque, baby.
It's a lot like 1975's hit film Shivers. But it's like everybody shows up at the end and there's this big pull out, but Cronenberg pulled out a little too far, and you can see that there's actually only 16 people there. Altman actually got the people there.
Van, what about you? Cringiest moment? Oh, no.
Cringiest moment. Now we're on director's signature.
Now we're on director's signature.
I would have to say, because I'm not, totally well-versed in Altman, but he's known for the ensemble shot. So I was just thinking about, like, one of the first, like, club scenes they're watching, honestly, I think it was the bad lady, Celine Gay, sing, and it's just back and forths between different conversations, and might not be Celine. I might be thinking of a different scene. But just sort of the back and forth where we catch snapshots and like snippets of conversations and then coming back to whatever the main action is and moving onwards. I thought that was very reminiscent of his style.
I think what you're talking about, there's actually two shows going on at the same time. That he
which is part of one of the confusing parts.
Yeah, so okay, then probably that.
Celine is singing and then a different singer is singing, but we're not sure what bar we're in when he keeps cutting back and forth.
And there's so many people in each location that, like, you really lose track of where you are and who's talking.
Then I absolutely got lost, and that was probably, again, very Altman-esque, so.
Yes, exactly. Point stands. Point to Van. And our final award. Pound for pound performance. Greg, who do you think really knocked it out of the park this time?
All right, I want to give it to this weaselly little terrible. Who is the guy? We keep calling him the bag man. It's John Triplett. Okay, Michael Murphy as John Triplett, who is all you like hear is these pie in the sky ideas of this politician. His speech sort of like serving as like a weird soundtrack to the movie. Like the ambient music isn't kind of the soundtrack. It's almost like his speeches form the soundtrack. But then when you see his man in action, he's so unctuous and evil and like gross and always tearing everybody down and always acting like he's better than everyone. And I really thought that Michael Murphy did a really good job like displaying what a terrible sort of like Lucifer come to Nashville this guy really is.
I mean, one of the parts we didn't talk about in the hotel scene when the rock star said that he can't do this because he's registered Democrat, and Michael Murphy's like, I'm registered Democrat, and then just Democrat. Evil laughs. Like, nothing means anything, bro.
I wish I had that worldview. Life seems simpler.
I know.
Yeah, life would be awesome.
I've said that all the time. Yeah, I was like, God, I wish I had my older sister's politics. She seems so unconflicted. And honestly, on a certain point, has integrity that I don't.
But see,
she lives in accordance with her horrible values.
It's that lack of conflicted thought that makes people want that worldview. Like they decide to look at the world as a brutal place and that it's right to be brutal in it. And so then, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Greg, thank you. We'll talk about this off air.
Do you need me to talk to your sister, Kate?
No. Well, she just gave birth, so we're gonna we'll give her a few weeks.
Give her the afternoon.
Exactly. Van, what about you? Pan for pan performance.
Oh man, I gotta give it to Keenan Wynn as Mr. Green, the uncle with the dying wife. Mm-hmm. So that, by far, I think he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Man, like
agreed.
Scott Glenn, the private, was trying to he was very excited to tell his new friend the story about Barbara Jean, and not knowing that
was
Mr.
so
Green was just standing there going through every emotion that he hadn't gone through, that he had tried to not go through over his entire life.
Oh, he looked like he was about to kill that kid.
Yeah.
Thank goodness wives can't really die. Right? Okay. What a nightmare that would be.
Hey, Kay, I'm going to need your sister to talk to Greg about that.
Mike, pound for pound.
I agree with Van. I think Keenan Wynn, what he does throughout the low level of frustration he has, but also like love. He's like, oh, my niece came because my wife's dying. That's so good. But like, he's always like, I'm an old person trying to talk to a young person who looks the way you do, Shelley Duvall. Like, and he just captures very real. Like, he just, no matter what his emotion is, it's just simmering underneath so much. He's an old dude who probably fought in World War II kind of world outlook of you don't show anything, but it's always just boiling under there.
The quiet rage.
Is it so much so that he wouldn't notice that he's like fostering an assassin? Doesn't that go against him?
Yeah, and dragging him, like, if he had just stayed through the end of his own wife's funeral, maybe she wouldn't have got, like, that's so crazy. He dragged that weird Stephen King-looking assassin to the concert. You gotta feel partially responsible, bro.
And Van, where are you at? Come hit this Stephen King-looking guy. There should have been some vans around to knock that guy off the street.
Not Van here. Not our Van.
No.
Van
That's
does
actually
it.
hit that guy with the car.
Ryan, pound for pound.
I got to give it up to the head of the Illinois Nazis himself, Henry Gibson. This is such a like terrible, not thankless part, but like he not only is his character built to hate, but his face is, like he just has that tiny, short, stupid face. And I think he does such a good job of, I think it's impossible on the page how this character was written to have any like feelings towards this character. And the fact that sometimes we feel, if not like sad for him, we can at least relate to how he feels sometimes. I think that it's an actual incredible performance. And for me, every time somebody says Nashville, he's the face I go back to. Even though there's 24 characters, he's always been the one that like stands out the most.
That's a good point. My instinct is to say that Van and Mike are right because of how clearly and distinctly Mr. Green stood out, like we talked about, in terms of his humanity. But in terms of, like, when I think of the image of the film and the person that's meant to represent kind of the themes throughout it, I do think that Henry Gibson's a great choice. So, no winners. Everyone's a winner.
It's the perfect movie. It's the perfect movie for that, I think.
I know. Look, hey, there were 24 answers. 2 of them count as right. Hey, it is what it is.
And I think the correct answer is the 25th answer, that smoking hot microphone on the poster.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Nashville
I thought you were going to say Nashville herself. Yeah, like, Mike, was that you who said that? That was very silly. Yeah. And with that, let's take a quick break, and when we're back, we're going to have our closing remarks. Nashville. 1975, Robert Altman. We've discussed all there is to discuss and nothing more. I only have one question left. Taste buds, this isn't on the bracket, but if it was, how would you feel about it? Greg, let's go to you.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
Let's go to me, Ryan. Let's try to do that. That's what the host wants to do. I think this was kind of a big mess up on our part. This feels like one of the best movies we've ever covered outside the show, and it's going to feel... I worry that it's going to feel a little hollow to not have this be in the bracket. We can only do what we can do, and there's no way we can undo it, but I think this would have had a legitimate shot to take it all down.
Well,
Brian,
the bracket had Jaws, so
eager.
Let's not say that it's just all ruined, but... I would like to blame Letterboxd because we do everything based on Letterboxd, and the seating for Nashville was so shockingly low. I could not believe how low it was. And then there's just this thing where when a movie has that low of seating, other movies, it'll have to fight against other movies, and it found its way out at some point, and that sucks because it's one of the 8 most important movies of 1975
for sure.
Yeah. Easy. Mike, how are you feeling?
I agree. I think it would have had as good of a shot as if a young Stephen King was in the front row of a concert aiming at a singer. That's how good of a shot this movie would have had to take down the rest of them. I loved this movie. I can't think of a movie that more begs to be rewatched again and again and again.
Yeah.
That
Agreed.
in 75, and I don't think we're going to get that.
Yeah. Van, how are you feeling?
Oh, everybody forgets that Kay asks a name and then that it's always Greg and Ryan.
But actually
Mike
it's
and
Ryan. Yeah,
Van
actually
and
Ryan has something to say before anything else. So, Van, actually hold your tongue and know your place.
Okay.
Ryan,
All right.
No, no.
What is your opinion?
I guess this is not how friendly conversation works. And also, Kate made that decision to say Greg and Ryan, Mike and Ryan, Van and Ryan, so she could have a good show for once. Like that's why she made that decision.
For once in my life.
Anyway, Van, can't wait to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So my thoughts are I would probably side with you guys if I watch this again. But that's that. I remain bored.
That's awesome.
That ruled. That was very cool. Ryan, you got anything to say that wasn't cool? That's like as cool as that, though?
Yeah, Ryan.
I forgot it all because I was so upset and insulted.
Yeah. That sounds
I
right.
could see that on his face, and I loved it.
Shut. Again, these are secrets we keep only to.
I'm the assassin. Don't go to my little violin case.
The whole point of every podcast is between me and Mike, who can make the other one look like a drunk Irish cop first. And
that's
he did it to me.
Stiff competition. Stiff as those drinks y'all had at the cop bar last night. Thanks, Greg.
Hey, I'm here for you, Kate.
There is good news, Kate.
My man, Greg.
It cannot win Movie of the Year, but it's still eligible for Moody's, and this can just sweep every goddamn Moody that there is at the end of the season.
You think so? What does that mean?
All the awawards that we give out, Nashville
Biggest
can still
shithead.
win. Biggest shithead.
Musical
I think
moment.
Oprah is
I'm
going to win
asking,
biggest
like,
shithead with like a bullet.
Yeah.
I know about the
Biggest
racial
shithead,
issues in the South.
She's this
I know
season's
about the South.
Terry, okay?
Greg, the reason you
yes.
think that is because you're a driver, and I don't really choose to talk to you anymore.
I don't gossip with servants.
I don't gossip with servants. Tinder profile. That's coming to you soon.
That is a good Tinder profile. Okay, so before we leave, does anyone have any last comments on this film? I feel like we're, other than Van, who is still bored, the rest of us are old white people who are like, this is cinema.
They don't make them like this anymore, Kate. This comes from a time where a man could make a movie. Not anymore.
Ryan, it looks like you maybe have one last thing to say before I ask for everyone's plugs.
Well, I was just going to say I agree with Greg, but that's not something you actually need to say. So I was just going to be quiet.
I agree with Ryan that he agrees with Greg.
Okay, let's get some plugs in. Van, are you doing anything lately?
Just posted on Instagram or planning to, s.v.mb if you want to follow me on there. Otherwise, not much.
Hell yeah. Same. My Instagram is also L. whatever yours was. What about you guys? Pop filter. Anything up for you guys?
We're good.
Yeah. Actually, plugs was stupid. I don't have anything to plug. So yeah, I guess we're all just friends chilling. We'll continue to chill and are pretty stoked for the next time we're all together to talk about another 1975 film that didn't make the bracket. Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah.
Okay, bye-bye!
Bye, everyone!